Good evening and thank you for joining us. Just when you may have thought it was safe to put the snow blowers and shovels away, Old Man Winter arrived in force once again last night, bringing another messy storm system. Kurt Black has been following the storm and joins us live in studio with the latest. Kurt?
Hey Riley, thanks for that. Yeah, I was not a happy camper this morning looking out my window, but as we were saying, part of living here in the Great North. Now the snowfall and the heavy winds that began last night, they continue today, and they were causing a fair share of headaches both in the city and across the region. The winter blast closed schools and other facilities and forced the temporary closure of portions of Highway 11 and 17. But the good news is that it looks like the worst of the storm is now behind us. Thunder Bay residents were once again forced to dig themselves out Thursday morning after the region was hit by a serious winter storm that brought with it snow, ice pellets, and high winds that made for dangerous road conditions. The arrival of Old Man Winter also forced the closure of all Lakehead and Catholic school boards, Lakehead University, and some city facilities, like the 55 Plus Center, which also closed its doors. Taking shelter from the storm, unfortunately, was not an option for the city crews tasked with keeping the roads clear, as they were out there bright and early.
2 a.m. we had our plow trucks in and graders. They started clearing the snow off our arterial collector and bus routes. Again, with the snow we got today, we kind of have to replow those throughout the day, and then we'll go into residential once those are all completed.
Thankfully, Environment Canada's Jeff Coulson believes that the worst is now behind us and is confident that Mother Nature will do its part to help with snow removal, as unseasonably warm temperatures are expected to arrive in the region next week.
But we're not really expecting a lot in the way of additional accumulations with that flurry activity on Thursday. And in fact, by the middle of next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, some areas could be getting up to 14, 15 degrees for those daytime highs. So a real shot of spring warmth is expected next week.
And that news should come as music to the ears for those who we spoke to today, who until this morning were cautiously optimistic that winter was behind us.
Well, I was hoping to be working on getting a boat out soon so we can get ready to do some fishing, but it looks like it's going to maybe make us sharpen ice auger once again.
I thought we were done with this, but obviously a little surprise again, so you got to get at it before it gets too heavy and too much. But I'm pretty sure we'll see the end of it, hopefully.
But while the system remains in the area, Coulson warns all travelers throughout the region to remain cautious.
Anyone planning travel to the west, mostly snow is a concern, but certainly traveling up along the North Shore, we could be dealing more with the freezing rain situation.
Kurt Black, TBT News.
The town of Ignace now has 2 council vacancies to fill. The township announced today that it's accepted the resignation of the former mayor and deputy mayor. This as the new reduced council continues to face a number of challenges. The 3 remaining councillors voted unanimously to accept the resignation of former Mayor Bill Gascoigne and Deputy Mayor Al Zimmer. In a written statement, the township called the resignations unfortunate but warranted. It went on to say there would be no further comment on the advice of lawyers. About a dozen protesters were gathered outside the Ignace Town Hall during yesterday's meeting in support of the former mayor. They called for the resignation of another councillor, John Taddeo, and an end to corruption. Meanwhile, OPP have now confirmed there's a fraud investigation underway focused on the municipal office. There's also a Ministry of Labour workplace harassment investigation. Ignace Council will now have the option to appoint a new mayor and councillor or call a by-election. The fight is on between Terrace Bay and Scriber. Each community is hoping to make the case that it's the better location for a new EMS station. The chief of Superior North EMS was in Terrace Bay yesterday to consult with local stakeholders about the amalgamation of the 2 existing stations. Lee Noonan was there.
Terrace Bay has the hospital, a bigger population, and higher call volume, which Mayor Paul Malashewski says makes his town the right choice, while Scriber Mayor Kevin Mullins feels that the township's more central location makes it the better location for them and communities to the west.
Well, I think everyone on council and administration are going to fight hard to have that the ambulance stay in Terrace Bay.
I really believe the region would be better with the ambulance being centralized in Scriber.
The new EMS station will house the same number of ambulances and paramedics that are currently stationed between the two communities, allowing the EMS service to stagger its shifts in a way that increases the time paramedics are on site and reduces average wait times, according to Superior North EMS Chief Shane Muir.
They get that response notification that there's a 911 call. They can walk down, jump into the ambulance right away, have quick rising doors, and be out and responding to that call within 90 seconds.
Muir does admit that while response times should be faster overall, they would be slower in some cases, something neither mayor wants.
Well, we're looking after the interests of our community, so yeah, obviously he wants it in Scriber and we want it in Terrace Bay.
Muir also hopes the new schedule will help avoid burnout and that a new station with modern working and living quarters will help address the service's difficulties with recruitment and retention in the area.
It's a big draw for paramedics. They can come in, they can use their skills and use modern equipment and work in great communities where the people are really pleasurable, and they'll be excited to be here.
Muir also talked about increasing paramedicine work in the communities and a new dispatch system that's expected to improve the prioritization of 911 calls. The power structure of Superior North EMS was also a major discussion point, with some expressing dismay that Thunder Bay City Council had the authority to amalgamate district EMS stations in the first place.
It's too bad that it came down to this, but Thunder Bay has made a decision and Shane's going to abide by it.
Muir wants to have a site selected quickly and shovels in the ground this year if possible, and both communities are ready with several suggestions for possible locations. Meanwhile, a site selection process is also underway in Nipigon Red Rock. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
2 Kenora OPP officers have been charged with assault by the Ontario Provincial Police Professional Standards Unit. The charges stem from an arrest in that community last December 26 after a paramedic was reportedly assaulted. That assault had ended by the time officers arrived, but there was a struggle with the accused at the time of the arrest. The Professional Standards Unit launched an investigation in January, and today charged provincial constables Carl Ranta and Alexander McEachern with assault. Both have been suspended with pay and will appear in court next month. Thunder Bay Public Library officials are applauding a recent change of heart by city councillors. Initially denied a request from the library board to eliminate the requirement that 2 seats be dedicated to representatives of the Lakehead and Catholic school boards. But council reversed course before ratification. Vasilos Bellos has the reaction.
The Thunder Bay Public Library's request to adjust its board's composition was finally approved by council on Monday night, going back on a previous decision prior to ratification. Last week, council initially rejected the ask to eliminate board seats dedicated to the public and Catholic school boards, opting instead to add a seat for a second city councillor. While that extra council position will stay in place, councillors ultimately did eliminate the 2 school board positions. Current Rivers' Andrew Fold says council eventually got it right.
Dennis Franklin Camardi is not represented. The Catholic French board is not represented. I just don't think that this is, in terms of an inclusive, diverse community, I don't think that this speaks to that.
The library board will now be made up of 9 members, including the 2 from council. The other 7 will all be citizen appointees. Library board chair Carol Grieve is happy about council's change of heart, saying this new structure should bring more diversity of experience.
Hopefully the other new board member that the council appoints will have some skills like perhaps law, engineering, architecture, things like that, which we could really use now.
Having more councillors see behind the scenes and really understand all of the nuts and bolts of what goes to make the library function can only help us, make our case for public funding. And I think having that diverse community representation is also really critical.
City Council is expected to appoint a second representative to the library board later this month. At-large Representative Trevor Gertuga has already voiced his interest. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Superior North MPP Lise Bourgeois is pressing the Ford government to add hospital capacity for Northwestern Ontario patients in need of dialysis. She rose at Queen's Park today, saying it's unfair that patients in need must relocate to Thunder Bay to get the care that they need.
In the entire area from the Manitoba border to White River all the way up to Hudson's Bay, anyone needing dialysis treatment must move to Thunder Bay because we have the only hospital that currently has dialysis capacity. After 9 months of living in Thunder Bay to receive treatment, Carol Davis has already spent $17,000 in expenses. So it's not only incredibly costly, it is also cruel that people who are sick have to move away from their homes, friends, and families. Minister, when will you be adding capacity to the 3 hospitals that already have dialysis units, and when will you be opening more dialysis units throughout the region?
Life-saving dialysis treatment is something that we want to be able to expand and ensure that people can get as close to home as possible. In fact, in the north, we have Ontario Health has identified capital initiatives to expand dialysis stations in Thunder Bay Regional Health Science Centre, Dryden Regional Health Centre, Lake of the Woods District Hospital in Kenora, and Waha, to improve dialysis in the province of Ontario. We know that people need these life-saving interventions as close to home as possible, and that is exactly what we're doing with Your Ontario Health.
Bourgeois tried to pin down a date for those expansions, but didn't get a response. She also insists the Northern Health Travel Grant needs to provide more money to cover costs incurred by patients who are forced to relocate. The Ford government says it's taking steps to strengthen protections for tenants across the province. Ontario is committing $6.5 million to increase the number of adjudicators and staff at the Landlord and Tenant Board. Siobhan Morris has the details.
Help is coming to protect tenants from rent eviction, being kicked out so a landlord can make improvements and jack up the rent.
Landlords would be required to provide a report from a qualified person stating that the unit must be vacant to allow renovations to take place.
In legislation to be tabled tomorrow, the government will propose requiring landlords to give tenants written updates on renovations and a 60-day window for tenants to return when work is done.
Landlords must, of course, give these tenants the opportunity to move back in at the same rent they were paying before the renovation.
In the dog days of summer, the government wants to melt obstacles to keeping cool.
We want to prohibit those prescriptive leases that basically forbid a tenant to install an air conditioner.
Allowing renters to install window or portable units if they give landlords a heads up with information about how efficient their AC is. Ontario wants to double the fines for rule-breaking landlords to $100,000 for individuals and $500,000 for corporations.
These maximum fines are the highest in Canada for residential tenancy offences and send a clear message that the rules must be followed.
The province is giving more money to the body that resolves fights between landlords and renters sooner. They'll spend $6.5 million to appoint 40 more adjudicators and 5 more staffers to the Landlord and Tenant Board to clear case backlogs.
We are making progress. We're just not making progress fast enough. And so that's why the additional resources to help us get there faster.
The opposition worries online hearings are leaving vulnerable renters unable to access justice.
If you do not speak English well, if you don't have access to a reliable internet connection or a computer,
time could run out. The NDP wants rent control on all units, not just older ones.
Including units that are built after 2018, and that we should also move forward with a system of vacancy control. So there's a cap on how much the rent can be increased if a tenant leaves.
That kind of rent control is something the government hasn't signaled it wants to take on.
And that was Siobhan Morris reporting. For the first time in 4 years, Port of Thunder Bay officials were able to gather in person today to celebrate the start of a new shipping season. The opening of Navigation Luncheon was held this afternoon. Those in attendance believe there's plenty to be excited about this year. People who work in and around the port were in attendance, giving everyone a chance to reconnect heading into the season. Discussions centered around a very successful 2022, particularly for grain and potash shipments, and how to make this year even better. Port CEO Tim Heaney says it was nice to gather again in person.
First time since pre-COVID that we've had one in person. We've had virtual meetings up to now, but we thought it's time to bring it back, in person and get the thing back going again, get it bigger and try and build it back up to what it was. So it's a happy time, just celebrating the start of the season and looking forward to what's coming, and everybody's pretty optimistic at this point in time. So.
The gathering comes just days before the top hat ceremony for the first Salty of the season, which is expected to occur this weekend. A Lakehead music student is about to take the trip of a lifetime. This summer, violist and composer Ignace Council will spend nearly 3 weeks in Italy studying with world-class musicians. Jessica Met has the story.
Third-year music student Ignace Council says when he first started playing the viola, he only saw it as a fun hobby. Now, 7 years in, he's going on a life-changing trip to Italy to study with world-class musicians at the renowned Cremona International Music Academy. Thanks to a $5,000 scholarship from LU's Institute of Italian Studies, Council will have the chance to participate in various workshops, performances, and classes. He says he's most excited about playing with the other musicians and working with the faculty.
I've done my research and looked at the faculty, and they're honestly amazing. Just seeing what they've achieved and being able to work with them, even if it's just for a short amount of time, I feel like it's going to help me improve my ability in music.
Council hopes the experience will help improve his compositional skills and overall musical knowledge.
I'm hoping to take away a better understanding of music, and specifically improve my viola playing with the guidance of the faculty there, and improve my orchestral skills with playing with the orchestra and chamber ensembles, and just in general playing with the other musicians.
Music Department Chair Evgeny Chuganov says he's had 3 other students take this trip previous years. However, Council is the first violist.
I can say what, as long as I'm happy for my piano students, I think for string player, and Amani is a wonderful viola player, it would be extremely beneficial because they have wonderful orchestral experience. He will play with different chamber groups. I can say that during these 2 weeks, you learn probably more than during 1 year in school.
Council will be in Italy on July 11th and spend 18 days in the musical program. Jessica Clement, TVT News.
Well, turning to weather now, Fiona, as we mentioned earlier, we sure got hit with the white stuff last night mostly, but a little bit today too.
And the wind.
Oh.
The wind is what really caused a lot of the trouble because my front door, no snow whatsoever, like maybe half a centimeter. My side of my house was buried under a foot, so it all depended where these gusty winds, at times up to 68 kilometers per hour, those were causing a lot of blowing snow added to the falling light snow. Now overnight, it was very mild, seasonally so, -5, and a wind chill though of -14. We warmed up to the freezing mark, still a far cry from the high of 7 we should be seeing at this time of year, and wind chills hovering around -6. Now, you might have noticed a lot of noise if you were near a window at times during the day, and that's because that blowing and light snow in the afternoon started to transition to ice pellets as it warmed up close to the freezing mark. Now, other parts of the region didn't have that difference in temperatures during the day. To the west, temperatures were quite steady, right around -4 Celsius all day in Fort Frances, with winds fairly light, so all that snow just gently falling, and wind chills hovering around -9. As you head further north, they're currently at -7 in Kenora and Dryden, Red Lake at -8, Sioux Lookout at -7, Armstrong at -8. They had light snow all day as well, but it was definitely cooler. Gusty winds, 45 kilometers per hour, and wind chills hovering around -14 most of the day. As we head eastward into Greenstone. It was equally cool overnight, but 50K winds are making this -5 feel like -11, -2 along the north shore, and then down to the eastern shore of Lake Superior. They had rain last night because temperatures were hovering pretty close to the freezing mark. Then during the day, it just kept warming up under mostly cloudy skies, so they've had a couple of bursts of showers during the day this afternoon, and in the last hour or so, they're sitting at 3 Celsius. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, it's going to be similar temperatures overnight, -6, and wind chills hovering around -14, with winds continuing to gust over 50 kilometers per hour. But coming from the southwest, we are expecting about 5 centimeters to fall. And as Kurt said earlier in the newscast, the worst of it seems to be over. The system will continue to move east during the day, and you see you can see the end of it. You can see it, but it's going to take probably until late in the afternoon to see it finally taper off. I'll have more details on the temperatures that will follow later on in the news hour.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Well, 19 Canadian women and children who have been detained for many, many years in Syria are finally making their way home. We'll have all those details for you as your Wednesday News Hour continues.
Every family, not surprisingly, was over the moon excited about the fact of their loved ones coming home to Canada.